And we are live. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the Crypto Cave podcast. My name is Jacob. Today I'm joined by Rufus and Phil, my colleagues, and we are joined by the Hobbyist Miner.
Hey, hey.
Hello, hello.
So, how's the last week been for you guys with the, all the things happening in crypto? Maybe it's good to introduce Hobbyist to all of our viewers who are not aware who he is. Can you introduce yourself?
Sure. I go by the Hobbyist Miner. I'm a home crypto miner and hobbyist, hence the name, as well as a content creator within the GPU mining and ASIC scene.
Great.
Cool.
So, for the people...
sorry, go ahead.
For the people who don't know us, there's probably more people here coming from your clout hobbyist than there are viewers coming from ours. We are a cryptocurrency mining company, and we have a weekly podcast. We haven't been doing them for the last couple of weeks because we were very busy traveling, and you guys probably seen our video with Hobbyist Miner on his channel, and even more to come. So that's amazing, and thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah, we had a great time. We had a great time up there, upstate New York, showing you around, and I mean, had a lot of fun. It was great.
Yeah, it was a blast. I mean, it's nice always to, coming from like the consumer side, your home consumer miner, getting to actually see more enterprise level is always more enjoyable, and especially the facility. I mean, it was so cool. The whole facility was really cool. Just the decommissioned hydroelectric dam and the old rustic look of some of the out parts of some of the decommissioned parts of the building, and then the little town was really neat. Kind of seeing that. And hey, had good eats, so we were good to go. Can't complain about that. Good eats and good beer, so good time all around.
Yeah, it was really good seeing you. You were like a kid in a candy shop, like running around through the aisles and looking at all the miners there. And it's a very cool. I mean, it's the same how it was for me when I first saw my first large mining facility. So yeah. So what we usually do here is we start out by looking at some charts. Phil is usually our chart whisperer. Phil is our I call him Chart Jesus, but he looks at charts 24/7, and whenever he sleeps, he dreams of charts. So he sent me over 2 charts. Let's take a look at them.
Yeah, we lost track of you a couple of times in that facility, hobbyist.
Hey, you know what? I was off on my own. I was like, hey, I was like, you guys are tied up. We're doing B-roll for a while. I'm out.
See that I've screwed up my
no,
my webcam
looks like
views.
Oh,
that's okay. That's okay.
I'm just gonna fix these.
Buy time.
Just gonna fix these while we're.
in the meantime, since the chart's visible there, we'll just distract people with that. Although there's not too much going on. I mean, if you're in the markets, you probably enjoyed the nice little bounce we just had. Very small there on the chart, but hey, percentage is what matters. And maybe we get a little bit more, but traditionally depression periods last a little bit longer than this. It's flat there at the ends, but I certainly might expect to see a little bit longer. Even if it's higher or lower, there's probably some more consolidation to come. Just my 2 cents. And then let's see, you get the cameras fixed. Can we go to the other one? That's
this one's a bit interesting,
relevant.
Obviously, because everybody know what happened, right, with this this chart right here.
We must be looking at Dogecoin now.
Yeah. We're currently looking at the Dogecoin chart, and
still just a little pop, but it's got a strong sink narrative or something. I'm not actually sure, but markets don't have to be rational. Cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers, guys. I'm from overseas, so for me, the working day is already over. For you guys, it's probably just halfway through the working day, but for me, it's It's actually 6 p.m., so I decided to crack open a beer while the team is still drinking their coffees.
Oh,
So
looks good.
cheers.
I know. So Phil, on your Dogecoin charts there, and I'm just butting in. I don't even know the format of this show. I'm just jumping in.
Go for it.
So on Dogecoin here, I think we can all agree that this is very much a reflection of it hitting more mainstream media with Twitter and the news with Elon Musk and stuff like that. We're not seeing any instrumental changes that have come out of the Dogecoin project or any big news. The interesting thing about this, though, is it's a small change. We're seeing, 2 cents, but that's pretty significant when you're talking about it's over 25% when you're starting to look at some of like the value of it. So the nice thing is anyone holding Doge or mining Doge or any of our L7 miners out there that are loving this right now, the value here is like, this isn't just like a day or a week type of thing. It's now like, okay, we're just getting into the beginning of, all right, Elon Musk is going to stir things up at Twitter. So this is just a small bump, but over 25%. I think at 7 days, like 40%. But now what's going to happen as things continue with changes at Twitter and mainstream media news? And then on top of that, what happens when, and I've been seeing some things about some announcements on integrations with crypto into Twitter and stuff like that. And if it is Dogecoin, that's going to be the oh snap moment where it's going to be like, wow, like we're not just going to see a 40% move when that occurs. So I'm excited as a longer Dogecoin holder. I'm not running an L7. I almost bought one recently, and I was like, I should have. Oh my word! As a home miner, I just tamed my S19J Pro, so the L7 may be the next one on my chopping block. But just some input from my side of the world looking at it.
Yeah, there's
so
go ahead.
The S19 you have, sorry to interrupt you, Phil. The S19 you have, is it the, so what kind of hash rate is it pumping out currently?
104 terahash right now. So it's that model. And then the nice thing is it's directly air cooled. My latest video I did last week, I actually removed all the ASIC fans on it and actually have a shroud system with an inline fan pumping into it. So it saves me about 100 watts total. That's actually going to drop after this video. So yeah, you actually cut down on your wattage pretty decently. There 100 watts saved. That includes the inline fans addition added to it. But yeah, that's directly pulling in. It's got its own dedicated system here at home. So it was 37 this morning. It's pulling in 37 degrees directly Fahrenheit. So as you guys know, the colder that air, the higher it hashes. So it's loving the cold fall winter air right now.
And that's 100 watts less that you'll have to cool too, as well.
Yeah, it's crazy though. I did some testing on like, okay, I backed off the speed of the inline fan, and as I did that, I literally was watching the watts increase. So like I changed it by 10% airflow, and it went up 100 watts. So it's crazy just how much. As soon as you start to that airflow, the amount drops or the temperature drops, the watts just go whoop, start to go up. So it's crazy to look at it at a home miner level and then think like, okay, now think of this at an enterprise level.
Yeah, you gotta be careful as well, right? Because for example, what happens if your ASIC would like go down and it would like suck really cold air in from outside? Let's say it's freezing outside, right? It sucks cold air in, and your board's very hot, and all of a sudden it just gets blasted by cold air. That can actually mean that like the board will shrink in the cold and can actually break your hash board. So just be careful with that.
It's something I'm doing now. So like I have AC Infinity actually sells a controller that you can do like triggers. So when it's 60 Fahrenheit, it's actually at a speed of 8, so 80%. So it does 800 CFM. So it's going to do 80% of that. And then when it goes below 60 Fahrenheit, I have it dropping down to 5, the speed of 5. So you get 400 CFM. 5 is the lowest I can go. I did some testing. If I go to 4, it actually hits 90 C. So then it starts to thermal throttle, and then on the output, on the outlet side of it, and then it will hit 96 C, which causes it to shut down the ASIC. So we're in fall right now in Pennsylvania, so we get a lot of fluctuations between the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s right now, like a big spread. when we get truly into winter, which will probably be end of November, beginning of December, I'm going to have to reevaluate that trigger of 60 Fahrenheit and the speeds. So it'll probably bump down another tier so that like when it's 30 out, it's going to only run at speed 4 or 3 or whatever. So just things that I'll have to keep in mind as a home miner, because as you're right, I'm literally pulling in directly from the outside. It's not just opened up, kind of like what your facility is laid out as.
Yeah, but what's nice is, you know, you could probably use that heat coming off of the ASIC to heat a little bit of your house.
Sure.
In the end,
Sure.
that can be like your next
Yep.
your next project, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Just pipe.
Hey, I'm just happy to have all my mining stuff outside my home. I did that for the longest time, and now that it's in its own shed, I'm like, hell no, I don't want anything else coming inside my home ever again. That was a nightmare.
You don't
nightmare.
like the sound?
Sound
It doesn't lull you to sleep at night.
the heat, man. Oh my word! I'm like, no. I mean, I have a jazz miner because it screams. It's the 1U in my garage, and that's loud enough. But you guys might not have seen it. But another content creator named Chump Change actually, it's a 1U. I don't know what jazz miner was thinking. They did a 1U server rack style, but it screams. Well, he went and removed these high RPM little fans. He put a few holes in the top of the case, put in some 120 millimeter fans or like 3000 RPM ones, quiet as could be, Noctuas, and it cools no problem. It's like, holy cow, like you should have built it that way to start with. So yeah, anyways, mining engines
Jesus lying around
on your nice jet miner there. I would recommend recirculating some of the air. So you can build in like a nice little device to decide, you know, I'll recirculate like whatever, 10, 15, 20% of the air. And that's the way to keep that temperature kind of constant. And then you don't have to, you know, deal with having to either decide on low fan or a frozen machine. Then you can actually just keep it at a nice constant temperature. So.
Someone else had recommended that, and I think that's a really good idea. So I'm going to have to come up with, off of the exhaust side of it, just tapping into the exhaust duct, which is like an 8-inch duct, tapping in like if I can get like a 2-inch tubing to run back into my intake, then that would be. I actually have a filter box too in front of it. There's a filter to help filter that coming into the ASIC. But tap that in. I think it's a phenomenal idea. And maybe the filter box is the best structure to tap it into, just because that's the first point of entry. It gives me the most space for that air to kind of fumulate around a little bit. So yeah, I think there's a lot of options there. But a few people have said that. I think that's going to be like a November, mid-November project now. To kind of expand upon it. But because when I was at your facility, you guys had talked about that. That was one of the questions we had talked about. Where you guys, and those not familiar, they have the cold air coming through in the cold aisles, and then with the hot air, and your hot air is not only going up and out of the facility, but there is also a route for the hot air to go into your cold aisle, or into your incoming cold aisle to help with that, which I thought was genius and a great idea.
Yeah, it helps us balance things because up there, we're real far north, so it gets really cold in the winter. And if we don't do that, I mean, hell, if we didn't do that, the entire facility would go into ice with just the amount of airflow and pressure we've got.
Yeah.
If that was just pure cold air coming in, it would become like freezing really, really quickly.
Yeah, I think we go into that in the next video, right? So
the next video I'm working on this weekend, that'll be dropping on Monday. We talk a lot about your airflow system, your automation. We talk about the cold aisles, the hot aisles, all that fun stuff. So that will be dropping on Monday. So that'll be this weekend's project.
Did you actually? I was doing stuff. I was kind of around, but did you actually go into one of the hot aisles while it was on?
Oh yeah. We got lots of footage of that, hanging out in the hot aisles. Yep, that's why I like the one picture of the Jacob opens the door.
Exactly. I was wondering if you closed the. I've never closed the door on myself while it was on.
Oh, it gets it's super loud and it's super hot there. Yeah.
I was in and out everywhere.
just like Phil was like, couldn't find you for a little while. I just roamed. I just
You
roamed
were
around.
not
I was
like us.
everywhere. Yeah,
Fun
I
little
got
sauna.
loads of footage. Yeah, that's hey, it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. Cool. But yeah, back to Dogecoin. So we kind of went off the beaten path there. Any
Yeah,
additional
that's
thoughts on that?
I was just going to come back around to what you were saying about how there really isn't any thing technologically. There's not really been anything different or new to it. It's just seems to be Elon's favorite toy. And you know, it stuck around all these years because it had great exchange support, right? It was kind of dominant once upon a time. And you know, it never broke or anything or caused them any trouble, so and remained liquid. So here it is today. Other than that, it's just a pretty basic little token, you know, or coin rather.
Yeah, it's one of the few it's one of the few cryptos out there that are so influenced by mainstream media. Like it's like all of a sudden you hear like other ones that come, you know, Ethereum of course is in the spotlight because of you know, proof of stake and going in different routes and stuff like that. But other than that, like no one else in mainstream media talks about the connections between crypto and like someone like Elon Musk. I think it just works out really, really well, which I'm not complaining. I mean, I have a number of ASICs at home, the mini ASICs though, that are your Dogecoin, Litecoin miners that I'm running. And so I love getting my hands on Litecoin and Dogecoin. And so as a home miner, I'm like, hell yeah, Elon, talk about as much as you want. You know, I'll take those pumps when I can get them. Yeah, we'll go from there.
I'll say something on the subject is I went through all of so Elon had to release his text messages about Twitter for the court case, and so I read through not all of them but a lot of them, and one of the themes I found was that he's fairly resistant to the idea of making it a DeFi or any sort of crypto platform. Unfortunately.
Okay.
So yeah. Anyways, don't get too excited is my point.
Don't ruin my party. Come on now. I'm all about it.
That's what I do. That's all I do. I mean, you know, I've been silent this whole time because normally Phil goes off about how bullish he is, and and then I beat him down with my bear. And you know, he's not bullish right now, so what can I say?
There's somebody beat him to it though, whether or not he wants it. It's, you know, a permissionless system, right? So there is a Doge chain. It's an EVM clone. I think it's one node POA. It's total like not serious, but then neither was Dogecoin, you know. So but yeah, and it uses Doge for gas supposedly. Anyway, you know, it's just it's one of those crypto things.
What I think opened my eyes a bit on Doge is when we were at the mining conference, I was talking to Son of a Tech.
Yeah.
He was over there and he said something very interesting, which I found quite, you know, interesting, is he said the issue with the bigger coins usually is, for example, Bitcoin has a big Blockstream influence. Ethereum has a very big Ethereum foundation influence, and the fact that the maker of Dogecoin does not hold a huge stake in it, and the developers themselves also do not hold a big stake in that, makes it one of the more decentralized coins. And I never really thought about it that way, but I did like the idea, even though that I'm not like a super Dogecoin fan or whatever, you know. Just I like the idea of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting project actually because it was made as a quote unquote joke because it wasn't like deflationary in the same way. And it ended up kind of a joke on the Bitcoin community, I feel, because it showed that you didn't need to be deflationary in the same way. That's not the crux of things. As long as you can be exchangeable and decentralized and secure. And yeah, anyways, it's an interesting project. But but it's not the main subject that we came here to talk about. We are here to talk about the state of Ethereum post-merge, which I know is not the most fun subject for miners, but recently, for many reasons, our team has been kind of diving into it. It's really interesting. It's really bizarre.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. I think we should have we have two small news articles I want to go over first. I think we wanted to.
You guys?
Sorry.
Okay, let's.
I just lost my audio. Maybe it's on my side though.
Oh, okay.
I can still hear you.
Yeah, I can still hear you. That's okay. He's gonna.
We can all hear you.
There it is. I'm back.
All right. Yeah.
Welcome back.
We could hear you, so no worries there.
Oh, I didn't do anything. That was weird. All of a sudden, Discord was like, "Nope, you can't hear them. You're out."
Oh wow, maybe it was your large upload that you were doing.
Maybe.
The fact that we were talking about forbidden subjects.
I like it. I like
it. That could be it. No, so I have two small news articles I want to talk about first before we dive in. There's one where Core Scientific is in trouble. I think you sent that to me, Phil, right?
Yeah, just more bottom bear market things, right? When you start to see these things happen.
It's pretty insane.
Core Scientific in trouble. That's amazing to me. I mean, they're like one of the best companies I always felt in the market. They were kind of the one that I always looked up to, and I didn't think that they were doing anything risky. I'm amazed.
It's pretty insane, right? Because I think what happened was they said that they were over leveraged. Let me grab a chart here real quick.
Yeah, I was just reading here. I was catching up on it. I was just reading here that they opted to sell equity, resorting to one of their least attractive options to raise money. Interesting.
And they basically just dropped dead here. Just dropped down from $1 to currently it's trading at 17 cents in 3 days.
Wow.
2 days. Yeah, 2 days. In 2 days, it goes from $1 to 17 cents. I mean, talk about the fact that people are saying that crypto is, the stock market itself is ruthless, But
but you also have to remember, like, look at the last 2 years, like how many companies, mines popped up. Like it was just almost an oversaturation. And now since it was a double-edged sword. The bear market lining up with the Ethereum merge, it was like the perfect storm is what occurred. And a lot of people I talked to, it's very much like it's a purge now. It's like the entire scene is being purged, with not only home miners, with institutional money, with big mining farms like this. And it's kind of getting back to a little more reality versus like everybody and their brother type of deal, which I love the everybody and their brother. And I love the bull market, and it went really well. But I honestly, it was so oversaturated that and now what you're seeing is, left and right. I mean, I'm getting messages left and right of places that are liquidating hardware now that were absurd pricing just to match Bitcoin. So I think this is going to be more of a norm as we move forward. And the ones that can stay afloat during this time period are going to come out best on the other side.
Yeah, but the issue is as well, we see it every bear market. We see every bear market, we see so many companies get liquidated. And they said as well, Core Scientific was way over leveraged. So what happened was they used all of their assets to lend more Bitcoin and lend more money and expand. And that's the issue, right? If you take out loans on your assets and take out loans on those new assets, then you're basically it only works as long as the price goes up, but you basically become your own Ponzi scheme by doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can't over leverage in this market. You can't, you've got to be able to pass an acid test
I mean,
you've got to have more capital than you owe at all times.
I mean, in the end, everybody in the comments, there's probably a lot of people in the comments or watching right now who have played with leverage trading a bit, and you know, in the end, 90% of the time you lose, you know. And if you obviously there's these chart Jesuses among us that that do make a little bit of money on leverage trading, but in the end, what happens is you get liquidated and you lose all of your coins. And people, you know, it's like gambling, and you know, gambling your company away just sounds like a terrible night's rest.
This is something that, speaking from a home miner perspective, I know it's a little opposite of where you guys are, but from a home miner perspective, the over leveraging part comes in where home miners were cashing out on crypto for operating cost. So what has occurred in a home miner scenario is that profitability is gone. So now you have nothing to cash out on to cover electric cost or your home mining expansion or upgrades and stuff. So that's what's happened significantly in the home miner scene, bigger than I ever thought. Going into the merge was the the bear market as we entered it was people shutting off. Now and then on top of that perfect storm we talked about earlier, just electric rates going through the roof. It was like, wow. So now what I'm finding is just there's so many people that have shut down from a home miner perspective just because, just as you said, they were over leveraged on everything depended on the value of crypto. And you could definitely tell who was holding, who was selling some to get by. So yeah, it's a little bit flip side versus on the enterprise side and over leveraging on your hardware and equity and stuff like that. But yeah, crazy.
Ultimately the same game, just at a different scale. And hooray for risk managers.
Yeah, I'm so glad we have a risk.
You're not aware,
yeah,
our CEO is a former risk manager, so I like to get that in there whenever I can.
You know, it's an underappreciated job. What can I say? But when you need them, you're happy you had them.
That's right.
And I mean, obviously, in a bear market, you know, everybody suffers. I mean, us ourselves, we have it's a lot tougher than it was 3 months ago, you know. But that's just how it goes. And you basically you're always prepared for the worst. And when you are, you know, it's just it's time to build. You know, build out. Get extra contacts, you know, just get the ball rolling and just keep building and keep building to your future. And, you know, the thing is, a 60% dip or a 70% dip, it just happens, and especially in crypto, you know, it's happened before. And since I started in 2013, I think it happened 3 or 4 times already. So yeah, it's just something that you have to prepare for. And you know, the funny thing is every larger company around us that we were basically eyeballing and being like, oh, those guys are doing really good business right now, they're all in trouble. So I mean, in the end, we were like very happy that we actually took a step back a little bit and, you know, took it a little bit slower. And obviously we're still waiting for GPU mining profitability to come back, because that's very important to us. But, you know, if it does, we're right back there to recapture the market and become bigger than we were.
Yeah. And obviously for us, GPU mining profitability is a little bit more obtainable than it might be for some home miners that are mining at, you know, 14, 15 cents. Yeah. Well, you know, even our customers get 10 cents. And that includes labor and electricity and rent and everything. We guarantee the equipment, etc.
Real cost is a little bit lower once you have that all in.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, you know, one more news article I have. I think Hobbyist just went for a quick run around his facility, and oh, there he is again. All right,
quit talking about me.
Yeah, we have one more news article. It's about the National Bank of Kazakhstan. Can you tell us a little bit more about it, Phil? What I think CZ
I
of
didn't
Binance.
read past the headline, and because I mean, kind of says it all right there. Kazakhstan is putting a CBDC out on Binance chain. you know, because I guess I'm not sure
Just because they can.
why. Yeah, I'm not sure one why you'd necessarily want it. Two, I'm not sure why you'd necessarily want it on Binance chain. Three, Kazakhstan has not been very crypto friendly, despite their constantly saying that they are.
They've
So
got complicated politics on it, and I don't really want to get into those, but
yeah,
we have experience with them at length, and unfortunately, I've had to deal with most of the politics around it, and
yeah,
it's
it's
very complicated.
We had
a little bit of a sore subject.
We had a black month in Kazakhstan, mining wise. I'm not sure if we talked about that in the interviews, hobbyist, but
We did
yeah.
not. No, we did not. No.
We
Okay.
had a short period where we were actually mining in Kazakhstan, and
I think that's as much as we're going to say about it right now.
yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Good for a quick one.
But
Shall we
I
get
think
into it?
Shangpeng Zhao, the CEO of Binance, is just a very influential person, crypto-wise, right? So he just goes around and meets all these leaders of those nations around there, and just talks them into joining their chain, basically. Which I think is kind of interesting, you know, because in the end, what's the current price of a transaction on Binance chain? Do you know, Phil?
It's probably small, but I mean, what's the cost of a transaction on PayPal?
Yeah,
that's
You
true.
know,
That's true.
it's
But
apples to oranges.
but I mean, then you're talking about the vision through an American perspective, right? If I want to send my friends money, I pay €0 and 0 transaction fees. And companies pay money to send large transactions and stuff like that. But I mean, even then, it's very small. You know, banks here just make money off of investing. There's lending out money and stuff like that. That's where the banks make their money. You don't have stuff like overdraft fees. I've never seen that ever in.
They got rid of
where
those
I'm
here
from.
for the most part. I mean, but yeah, anyways.
Yeah, but I mean,
just,
sending someone money and having to pay to send money, as a consumer, you never see that. So I can just send someone 10,000 euros, and I'll never ever pay a penny for that. So, you know, having to pay a transaction fee is still, you know, I'm still
yeah.
I'm still against transaction fees for some reason,
Well,
I guess.
you pay the transaction fee on the blockchain, right? Because the blockchain is you know, a decentralized entity, and having it decentralized, you have to pay people. It's not free, right? And then when you centralize things and have other sources of income, this is the great segue, actually. Talking about very centralized Binance chain, right?
Yeah, talking about centralization,
Comparing it to you know, a peer-to-peer payment's not the same as a payment from a centralized server company or entity. And if one of those happens to make a blockchain, that doesn't a blockchain make, right? Like they can make something that looks like a blockchain, works like a blockchain, but doesn't have the same guarantees of a blockchain. And then, like you said, they get to charge fees nonetheless. So let's see. I wrote a very long thing on MEV. If you're not familiar with MEV, it was short for miner extracted value. And briefly, I'll say that as far as this whole situation goes, all of this is in the hands of what I would call the good guys for now. Right. But anytime you have a situation like this, all it takes is a changing of the guards, right? Binance chain, it works fine until someone at Binance decides that it shouldn't work fine anymore, right? And then they of course have the ability to do that, which is why it's a problem. So
I mean, the
not
issue
saying
is as
any.
well, yeah. I mean, they recently halted the whole Binance blockchain, right? Imagine
Yeah,
if your
I
whole
mean, well,
country
you
runs on
know,
that. They halted it for
there's an
2
exploit.
days. What if your country runs on that? That's crazy, right?
Yeah, and you know, then this will be the ultimate point of this whole thing is we're in this industry to build decentralized, autonomous global networks, and that this system, right? This financial system that we all share on this planet, even if it's in different segments and under different authorities, the job of this machine is ultimately to feed everybody. That's what it's all about. So if and then we saw, you know, when there's natural disasters, right? Was it what's the name of the place that had a volcano and a tsunami kind of recently? And their financial system was wiped out, but very quickly Bitcoin was able to be deployed
Yeah.
in its stead. Can't remember the name of the place. Anyway, um, not saying that anyone should buy or sell any crypto with this, and I'm not trying to throw some shade on a lot of these participants that ultimately are just following game theory, right? There's not really good options here at the end of it. So anyway, Mev, if you're not familiar, if you don't trade DeFi, is anything where there was money left on the table during a DeFi transaction. So this could be just some arbitrage, some markets out of whack, some dexes out of whack. It could be some front running or a sandwich transaction. This is where a user has left too much slippage on their transaction, more than was necessary. So a someone who has a little bit of control of the order of transactions within a block or across several blocks, which is now also an option. But if they can do that, then they can get ahead of your transaction, get that extra slippage out of there. Your transaction will still be valid, and then they've just taken a little bit of money risk free. And really, you know, this is a UX issue, or it was. It was a UX issue under proof of work. And
What you mean by that, when you say that, is that, to be clear, is that if you designed a way of doing DeFi transactions, if you designed them in such a way that you were able to pre-calculate what the kind of slippage is, then you could just price that in, and the person who is making the order would they would know exactly what they're going to get beforehand, and they could place their order, and you wouldn't be seeing a lot of like people just making ridiculous amounts of money on it. The issue was that the UX wasn't really pre-designed to calculate what the costs were, the runoff costs associated with these transactions. Correct?
I think if I followed you there, well, the user, the person making the transaction has to specify in advance how much slippage they're going to allow because they have no control over when their transaction will eventually occur.
Yeah.
So there's you know, the slippage in that time could change. So if you want your transaction to go through, you generally allow for a bit higher slippage. And if you put too much in there, someone can come along and take that little bit extra. But the reason I didn't consider this a problem under proof of work, and this was around, we'll get into the exact nature of the situation in a second. But this was around before the merge, and it was actually arguably worse, or maybe even more centralized. But all it really results in is
more centralized, but
yeah,
yeah.
I'll get to it. But there's I just lost my train of thought there.
Right. Mev was more centralized before the merge, but it wasn't so important because the pools were the ones building the blocks. And they were also the ones validating the blocks and relaying the blocks, etc. And so they would be handed MEV opportunities. And if you could pull up that diagram, that'd be great, Jacob.
Well, the results of this is that it was gas issues, and some people would pay more. It's the next image. That's the one he's talking about. But
I was
I'll
talking
get
about
to
the diagram with users, searchers, builders.
Yeah, you're skipping a little bit ahead of me though. The UX problem here under proof of work is that it's kind of a soft censorship was maybe the only thing that you could complain about. And that being that some people might pay more for transactions than others. If your transaction didn't have any MEV in it, or if you were broadcasting only to the mempool or using something that prevented MEV from occurring on your transaction, you're forcing that DeFi transaction through with the money on the table that you're leaving all the way through. So what happens here is MEV kind of becomes a somewhat substitute for gas. If you've got a high slippage on your transaction's worth more to the miners, worth more to the validators, so you can get it processed at a lower gas fee, even though you're effectively paying the same thing. So like at the end of the day, if you have to pay more for gas because you don't want to be MEV'd, you're still paying the same as the guy who got the MEV. Because it's just where did you get it taken from, your transaction or your gas?
One side or the other, yeah.
Yeah.
But so
go ahead.
With under proof of work, the thing was because the pools were making the blocks, they would get the MEV transaction from the searcher, but then they would include those in the beginning of the block. But then they wanted to fill up that block, so they would fill it with transactions from the mempool, and those would be they got paid for those. That they were happy with that. They always try to make those blocks as full as possible. Now with the current situation, because the block builder is often working directly with the searcher and the relayer, and is no longer
we need to define all these terms. We've not told anybody what any of these things are yet.
Yeah, definitely a good.
If we could scroll to that briefly, if you could, Jacob, the diagram. Yeah, but also we need to define each of these people and what they do. So the searcher is a person who is looking for MEV opportunities on the blockchain, and of course, we've described sandwiching and the calling liquidations is another known one, but really the opportunities are infinite. It's infinite as DeFi itself. New DeFi creates new opportunities for MEV, and you need someone to go find those. The person is called the searcher. They assemble the transactions with their addresses, so they're the ones that are going to get paid for all the MEV. They get 100% of the MEV. And then upstream from here, they pay out their other parties in gas. They leave gas on the table for the block builder, who is someone they pass their transactions to. The builder then fills the rest of the block with mempool transactions if it's not full. The block builder then passes it to the relay. And the relay was a solution. This builder proposer separation came a little bit later. The relay by Flashbots, they've got the major relay, and no shade on them. They are making the best of a terrible situation.
To be clear, under the old proof of work model, the builder, relay, and validator were all one. And that was the pool.
No, there was a relay. The thing is that the builder was on the other side of the relay. There was a relay from the searchers to the builder, who was the pool, And then the pool essentially functioned as a relay to the miners themselves, who were only hashing headers, right? If you were a miner, you only hash headers. And so this model was kind of an attempt to restore a little bit of balance, but I'll get into that in a second. The relay under proof of work was set up to ensure that all of the mining pools had access to all of the MEV transactions, because what was happening was searchers would only submit to the biggest pools, because if you're a searcher and your MEV transaction doesn't get included in the block, you didn't make anything. Right? So you need to send it to the biggest pool, or as many pools as you can. And the relay just it actually kind of fixed that for what it's worth. And it brought the gas down. It did make things a little more fair, even though at one point you did have 90% of the MEV transactions going through this relay, which is much higher than it is now. But as we've already kind of gone over, that wasn't really an issue, because in the end, under proof of work, mining pools are kind of disposable. They're trivial. Not to throw shade on the mining pools, brains, or anybody. Running anything at scale is a big job. I'm sure it takes a whole lot of work, but as far as spinning up a mining pool goes, if there was an issue at one of the big mining pools and you want to spin one up, or somebody else spins one up and you want to switch over to it, there is no friction to do that. It is really trivial. And this is ultimately what makes this such a big deal.
And I mean, consider the difficulty of spinning up a mining pool versus actually running a huge mining center, 1+% of the network. Spinning up a mining pool is way easier than running 1% of the mining network.
Literally forging physical chips and machines. If you want to try and get into that, right? So when we go to proof of stake, or at least this was also pre-merge. This builder proposal separation is almost a year old. And this was made under the concern that validators would operate censorship markets. And censorship markets in the context of MEV would mean, for instance, I mean, they could take a lot of forms, but an easy example is two searchers vying for the same opportunity, both having equal footing on all other respects. One of them decides to pay the validator to not include the other transaction. So to maybe prevent that a little bit, or try to make it a little bit more fair, this builder proposer model, where the builder goes on the other side of the relay, was supposed to help solve that, mitigate that a little bit. And for what it's worth, it does. The validator is no longer realistically able to operate a censorship market, since they're now just signing off on headers. The problem is that now the relay gets to do that. Now the relay is the one who gets to operate the censorship markets. And there are far fewer relays than there are validators. Starting a relay requires more technical expertise than running a regular Ethereum node, which is already pretty difficult. And then we've basically, because the validators themselves, right? So these are the pools now. They're not maybe individual holders. So they're in a competition for the yield, right? They have to offer the highest yield in the game, or they're going to lose stakers to another pool. This is assuming that the staking ETH is liquid and you can unstake it, right? That's not presently the case, but we'll just be charitable and assume that that comes along very soon. Even then, there will be a unstaking period. All staking systems need an unstaking period, otherwise you can't enforce slashing. So if you have slashing, you have an unlock period. The unlock period needs to be as long as reasonably possible in order to make sure you can't abuse the slashing mechanism, right? It's got to be an enforceable slashing mechanism for a long distance attack. You also don't want to inconvenience people. I see 21 days a lot. Who knows if that's what it'll be. But what you need to compare now is if a mining pool who is in the same sort of setup, right? Mining pool has to compete for yield. They want to offer as much as they can to the people, the miners on their pool, so they can attract more people. But if they ever begin to misbehave, they're gone, right? They're gone. Everybody's going to switch. You can flood out of there in a heartbeat, and it takes nothing. And under this system, you're going to have at least a 21-day window where you're off. That's what you need to compare it to. Now, you as a home miner or even a large industrial miner, if a mining pool starts censoring some people, right? Some people, but they're still offering a lot of money. You really care? For 21 days, you're going to off for almost a whole month just for these people? Maybe, but you gotta maybe be in the same boat as everyone else, because if you choose to leave, right, but nobody else does, now you're losing market share, right? Because you're not at the best pool. You need to be at the best pool, or you're losing market share in this
if you're losing
inflationary
market
environment.
share in proof of stake, because it's inherently centralizing, if you're not making as much as the next person, then you're losing the amount that you're staking. You're losing control of the network, and eventually the entire network goes over to whoever makes the most. And if they're making the most through censorship, and that doesn't matter if they are paying, like literally that could be money that hell, there could be some outside agency that just wants to censor this, pays a little bit of a little bit extra to anyone who's censoring, says, hey, I'll pay an extra, $5 or something, as long as you never to anybody who never processes a censored transaction. Well, now all of a sudden nobody wants to ever touch them.
Yep.
Yeah, and let's go up to like, hey, Binance, how much to publish empty blocks only? All right, what's your price tag for that? Because all you got to do is compete. I know your price tag actually, because all you got to do is compete with the next best pool.
Yeah.
So and that's where we're at. And if you want to, Jacob, if you scroll up to the top or second to top image, the mevwatch.info. We didn't really have mevwatch before the merge because it didn't really matter. Now it matters a lot. And this is yesterday's graphic. I haven't looked today. It was at 64% OFAC compliance. The critical threshold for proof of stake on Ethereum is 66%. So in 2 more percent, there's a realistic chance that the large validators, the validators who are also the large economic nodes, if you recall, the economic nodes during the block size war had a big role to play. But ultimately, they were important, but they weren't at the end of the discussion, right? Because there's also the miners that have their own separate interests from the large economic nodes. And what we have here is a situation where the big exchanges, Coinbase, FTX, Binance, etc., would be the largest mining farms. So imagine Bitcoin, where the exchanges not only have all the liquidity, but also all the hardware. And what kind of environment is that? Do you care if they run a pool?
In the end,
do you care if they use somebody else's pool? Like,
in the end, the exchanges already have compliancy stuff in place, right? They have to KYC everybody. So in the end, what it drums down to is it's a huge attack on decentralization. And in the end, I think if you really want to know the core values of it, I've posted the link to Phil's full write-up on this in the chat, because this is something that's really valuable to us, that really goes deep for us. decentralization wise, you know. But yeah, I mean, if you hear Phil talk about it, it's just not even a little bit of it.
The thing I was saying here with the 66%, right? If somebody went to one of these to an exchange and said, you're a large economic node, you hold a lot of Bitcoin, your node is not allowed to build off of a censored transaction anymore. What happens there is they're essentially kicked off the network, right? They can't use Bitcoin if they don't include all of the blocks that consensus dictates that they should include. And they have no power to do anything about it. Even if a large entity went to all the big exchanges and said, all you big economic nodes, stop building off of, stop accepting blocks that have censored transactions in them, they don't have any hash power. They've got nothing after that. Even if they have all the money, the hard fork away from them would have all the hash power and be the secure one. That's not the case here. Once this hits 66%, if somebody wants to tell them stop building off of blocks with censored transactions in them, they can hard fork the network, and then there are no more, no more free transactions. And I'm sure the community would be in an outrage, right? This has been proposed, right? This has been thought about. Well, we'd hard fork and kick them off the network. And I would say, with what Ethereum?
Yeah,
because you with proof of work, you have this hash power that you can wrestle that back from them. But now they've got you're gonna hard fork and copy paste everybody onto a new network. What if they choose not to run it? They don't have any choice if they're going to run it under proof of work.
Forking, this is the most ridiculous argument to me, because when you say you're hard forking and cutting those people out, you're cutting out everybody who's
the liquidity.
You're cutting out everybody who's got their money on any exchange.
Yeah,
you're stealing. You're not stealing or destroying value from some evil boogeyman, centralized, horrible person, because that exchange doesn't really own that crypto. They just have it because people are lazy. You know,
and there's basically nothing you can do at this point. I'm sorry. The moral of the story.
Extra fun because of the inability to unstake your ETH right now, which means that nobody could even move their Ethereum. The actual Ethereum cannot be moved. So like what exactly? They would just be destroying anybody's ETH that anybody who owns
even if they copied it over onto, and let's say they fork that in when they do the hard fork away from these misbehaving people. They're forking away from all the liquidity and economic power, which means they're starting from scratch. And at least under proof of work, one of the two parties, either the liquidity or the security, has to start from scratch, and nobody wants to do that, so everybody works together. But there's not really any incentive to do that anymore, other than good looks. And there's no way out too. This conversation is actually isn't that new. I was reading, there's people raising my exact concerns on the Ethereum research forums, and the response from Vitalik was actually like, well, do you have a better answer?
Yeah, that's terrible.
Like, no, there's no better answer. The answer,
I mean, it's never a good situation.
Proof of stake.
Yeah. I mean, it's never a good situation. It was a mistake. Yeah, it's never a good situation to provide a problem and not a solution or an answer to it. So, like, when you present something like that to someone in his position, and it's like, well, you got anything better? And you're like, nope. It's like, okay, it just gets swept under the rug, unfortunately, because if you're not coming with even a possible option, like, hey, let's go this route type of deal. No, I agree. I think the proof of stake avenue, unfortunately, is slowly catching up, and I think it's unraveling, and based off of your conversations too, and everything's unraveling now to go, oh crap. And it's really a shame when I started to read through the article and kind of thinking through the current state of Ethereum. It's a real shame, because as much as like some of us have that instinct to be like, screw it, let it burn type of deal, others of us, you also have to think from an outside perspective looking in. you kind of need it to succeed. Like that's kind of how we were, especially with when Ethereum went from proof of work to proof of stake. It was like, okay, we really don't need this to be a fumble. Like we don't need this to be a cluster, and we really just need it to succeed, because from outside money looking at crypto overall, from institutional money, like showing success is okay, great. There's some reassurances there. In this situation here, it's like there is no backpedaling with Ethereum. Like there's no, hey, we're going to take a step backwards. So the challenge is like, you really can't, after all of this, be like, and Vitalik would not be like, all right, let's pivot back. It's like, it's not a thing. Like you can't do that.
Another 6 years going back to
you have to forge forward. The downside is like you're losing faith, you're losing value. I mean, look at the value of Ethereum. It's just institutional money coming back into it. It's like, man, do people want to touch this? And I've heard plenty of people that are like, oh, well, I'm holding tight on my Ethereum because I do think it's going to go back up. What is Ethereum going to do to trigger a value spike? Because right now, everything they do just causes it to go down even more. But this also is a phenomenal example. This is like your textbook example that we will talk about years down the road of like, don't do this because of this. It's going to have like an amazing case study around this down the road. It's going to be like, don't touch proof of stake.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see. Something that makes me a bit sad about this situation is that there isn't a real, there's no coin that has any decent real like Ethereum devs. And there are plenty of Ethereum devs and developers around Ethereum who saw this coming, who were against it, but they haven't kind of been able to band together or do anything together, and so there's no kind of alternative coin.
Yeah.
There's no.
Call it climate denier. If you're against proof of stake, you're a climate denier, Rufus. There can't be any other reison. Anti-intellectualism at its finest.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly seems to have been what happened. I mean, we got two forks of Ethereum, but they were both jokes. They're started in China. They don't have any dev support. They don't have a clear path. They don't have a clear community. We need to, I would really like to see some sort of coin start that is a serious, all right, this is an alternative route. This is another way to do it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you're right about all these Ethereum for like either ETH projects that have come to light. I mean, even this past week, like this pink chain that all of a sudden just kind of came, all of a sudden it's like the hype right now. It's like, everyone's kind of jumping on it, but you're right. We have all these like little tiny projects that really don't have developers behind it. They're just kind of holding up that algorithm, and that's really it. So yeah, you do need something with some backing and value to it, especially promising for projects as well.
I think there's Ethereum Classic, but Ethereum Classic is held back by its own drama and its own set of people. Like a huge thing that's going to hold back any of them is that they need to fork the algo, because if you're going to get buy-in, if you're going to get people into your project, you're gonna need to, like, every project, Bitcoin, Ethereum, I guess those are the two big ones, but Monero, I would argue as well. All of these coins that have really kind of seen some good adoption and good development started with GPU mining. And the developers, all the developers they attracted came to them got introduced to the coin through GPU mining. And if you don't make a coin, if you don't start your coin being GPU mineable, you're not going to be able to build that community, that interests.
The grassroots side of it. Yep.
Yeah.
That's what made Monero, and that's what made Ethereum, and that's what made Bitcoin, right? The fact that everybody could start out with nothing and in the end have something. And I think the difference is as well, obviously we have a couple of proof of stake coins already. We have delegated proof of stake coins as well. Obviously those coins get made, and you get a trade-off, right? You get a trade-off for you get centralization, but the coins are cheaper to transact or something like that. But the issue was with Ethereum, nothing changed except for they just flipped over to proof of stake and
Yeah, they didn't
just
even make it more
centralized
efficient.
everything. They
Yeah,
didn't
that's the best
like pimp it out. They didn't like make it cheaper for anyone to use or whatever. They just
There's
basically
no improvement.
no
Yeah.
improvement,
the
just
great
99% more centralization. And yeah.
is now you mentioned DPoS, delegated proof of stake systems, in my opinion, are now more secure. Matic is now more secure than Ethereum.
Yeah.
And
If you
if you
have
go back to
100
the
validators that are voted for, is more secure right now than Ethereum
because you can
itself.
guarantee, and that's not really guarantee, because somebody could have a lot of Matic and vote themselves multiple validator slots. They could pretend to be different people when they're the same person and operate multiple validator slots, but it's way harder. That is so much harder to do than simply just gathering the coins and now you're in charge.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I
Hobbyist, any new type of coins on the horizon that you're looking at right now? I saw you tweeting about pink. What was it called? Pink coin?
Pink chain is
Pink
Pink chain
chain.
is just So Pink chain is just one that that kind of came to more spotlight over the last week or so. It is, it's very similar to kind of like what you're seeing with like ETHW and stuff like that. And nice thing is I can throw some of my home like iPolo miners and jazz miners and stuff on it, get a nice little bag of it. Just in case it has. I mean, that's the nice thing is that people overlook is like right now during a bear market, small fluctuations in some of these fractions of a penny coins, can go a long way, which is great, especially if you have hundreds of thousands of them, which is a nice improvement there. So, that's one that's kind of come about there. I mean, I have a decent amount of hash rate on Meow Coin, another kind of one of these like coins that's kind of popped up, outside of that. Neoxa is another one, both of those Raven Coin algorithms there. Neoxa has a little more longevity to it. It's not brand new like Meowcoin or Pink Chain, but Neoxa definitely has a lot of things going on with its proof of game project and things like that. So yeah, right now as a home miner, even it's all about just increasing your bags with some of these spec coins for minimal amount of operating expense.
Yeah, so what do you think about so the interesting thing is Meowcoin is not a coin that uses proof of useful work, but the project around it is kind of useful, right?
Correct. Yeah, I mean Meowcoin, they are taking some of the fees that are coming off of that are going into donated towards different like animal shelters or different charities and stuff like that. So yeah, at the end of the day, it does have, without having it directly built in to the project, it is taking the funds and passing them along to donations and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. You can kind of see that there is some value behind it.
All right. Well, guys, it's already been an hour.
Yeah.
I know, where'd it go?
Yeah, it just went by so fast. Any closing notes we want to have for everybody watching? Because I always like to say just keep on mining, and let's hope GPU profitability comes back to us, and let's keep building as well.
If anyone knows any Ethereum devs that are not happy with the way things are going, come on, let's get them together. Let's organize these people into a community and get something new going on the GPU mining front.
There you go.
Yeah. That's I'm not even sure where to look for. Is Bitcoin Talk the place that people still build things? It just seems so it's so inundated these days. I think
Bitcoin Talk still looks the same as it looked 10 years ago.
There's so much going on that you can't like tell. It's just you can flood the front page of everything gets flooded constantly. Yeah. You have no idea
just get bumped by everybody. You don't get noticed by anybody anymore. Yeah. I mean, that's what you get, right? And isn't that going to be the issue with Twitter as well? If they unban all the people that are banned by Twitter, that it's just going to get flooded and flooded and flooded.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Well, Twitter
We're going to see.
algorithm's pretty good at showing me the people that I actually have some interest in, at least. So
Sure. Correct. I agree.
That's what it comes down to.
All right. Guys, thank you for watching the Crypto Cave podcast. I think we should wind down right now. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you, Hobbyist, for
Hobbyist Miner.
Yeah, check out
Thank
the
you,
Hobbyist
guys.
Miners channel. I think it's in the description below. If it's not, please kick me in the butt on Twitter, and I'll make sure to include it there. And
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, this was us. Thank you, Hobbyist. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Rufus. And have a nice weekend, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.